Hello world, and we are back. My name's Kyle Fischl. This is going to be episode 238 of my poker vlog. For this one, I play a 1-3 deep stack session at Sarasota, Florida, the One Eye Jacks Poker Club. Before I talk about the hands from that day, I was super bored last night and decided to hop on the online streets and see what was going on. And there was a $3 tournament. I'm not really a tournament player, it was a satellite, but I thought, you know what, I'm bored, it's $3, whatever, let's play. I ended up winning the tournament, get a seat into the bigger one, which I kind of didn't even want to play. I was actually hoping to get 15th, where 14 people got seats. 15th got like $30. Turning 3 into 30, I would have been like, fine, cool. I made some money playing a tournament. I'm not a tournament player. But regardless, we get a seat. We can't cash out the seat. We have to play. Turns out it's a mystery bounty tournament. And when I knock someone out, I actually hit the jackpot bounty for $760, which was pretty sick. Ended up making a little bit more on the tournament as well. So on that day, we actually spun $3 into $850. It was a pretty sick run, if I'm being honest. I guess these tournaments are super fun and super profitable. So if you have any interest in playing them with me, you can message me on Instagram or Telegram, and I'm happy to get you set up for them. Otherwise, let's talk about some poker hands. On the first hand of note, I looked down at pocket queens from the cutoff with 2 limps. The hijack makes it $15. I am certainly not going to just call from in position with pocket queens. I 3-bet to $45. And somehow it's good for 3, good for 45. Both limpers call and the hijack calls as well. So I end up going 4 ways to a flop. This multi-way, I'm just really praying it's not an ace or king high board, because someone's likely going to have one of those holdings, and I guess I kind of get my wish because the board is 10, 10, 9 rainbow. It turns out I really don't like this board either. Any of these limpers can just have a random 10. Very much a board that smashes a limp caller's range, and it doesn't even get to me. The big blind just leads out for 40, and the gun player calls.
That is surprising.
I guess you could just jump ship right here if you really had like reads that your opponents were super tight and nitty, but with pocket queens and technically a backdoor straight draw, a queen would give me the basic nuts. I'm certainly not going to fold for 40. I make the call. We end up going 3 ways to a turn card, which is the 7 of clubs. Now the big blind slows down and checks. I'm very happy to see that. He likely has a draw of some sort, maybe a weak pocket pair, maybe random 9, so likely ahead of him. But then the under the gun player just rips it for $300. I guess Jack 8 makes some sense. Would he really just have the pure 10-9, flop the nuts, and be happy to just call on the flop and now get the money in since 2 people have shown interest in the hand? I'm not sure. Queens is definitely just a bluff catcher at this point. I mean, I guess I beat pocket jack specifically, but he's a limp caller. How does he have that? I think he just has a 10 here more often than not. So I just let it go. The big blind who led out, he decides to make the call. He only has like less than $100 behind. And he has jack queen, so just let out with an open ender. And then the under the gun player had ace 10 of diamonds, and he was a limp caller, so kind of tight limp call on that one, but he gets to flop trips and win a pretty big hand, and we are starting the session with queens getting cracked. Not the best start. But moving right along, under the gun, I look down at ace king of spades. I raise up to $15 as I'm first to act. The button and the small blind decide to call, so I'm going 3 ways to a flop, which is ace jack 5 rainbow no spade. Feel pretty good about this one, but when it checks to me, I'm going to check a lot of my range here out of position 1 player, see what they want to do, get a lot of information based on them and the turn. So I check, and the button checks it back. Turn is the 6 of clubs, very bricky. Not too many 2 pairs are there besides 5, 6 exactly. But the small blind leads for $40. And that is like a pot-sized bet on the lead. And this is his first time to pick up the betting lead, so it looks pretty strong. I guess he could have ace-jack sometimes. I would consider raising a small bet like 15, but when he pots it, I'm going to just call here. Certainly not going to fold. The button decides to fold somewhere. Heads up to a river, which is the 8 of hearts. Very bricky, not too many 2 pairs have got there. Now the small blind size is down to $35. He has like 150 in his stack, and I guess I considered jamming here for value, but I don't really see him calling with worse. I think at that point I'm targeting exactly ace queen or ace 10, so a little bit thin in my opinion, but I do make the call for $35, and my opponent has ace deuce offsuit. That one might have called a raise, maybe not a jam, so maybe 100 or 85 gets called there, but we just call, we take down a decent sized pot. Following that, I'm under the gun again. I look down at king jack of hearts. I raise up to $15. The cutoff and the big blind call, so I'm going 3 ways to a flop. of Jack 3 deuce with 2 spades. I usually check out of position, but sometimes I'm going to mix it up. This could be one of those times jacks require a little bit more protection from any pesky queens or aces that might hit the turn. So I size up. I bet $30. Definitely want to get value from 4-5, any 2 spades. A good 2/3 bet size I think captures a lot of value. And on this one, the big blind is the only caller, so we're heads up to a turn card, which is the king of clubs. I was not really expecting to improve on this street, but since we did, when my opponent checks to me, I'm going to size down here. I bet $35. The thinking being, if my opponent does have 4-5 or a spade draw, he might think that this king is a good bluff raise card, and he will be certainly disappointed when I get it all in on that one. Additionally, if my opponent has like queen jack, jack 10, something like that, he's not going to want to pay off a big bet, so that's why we size down here. And my opponent makes the call, so happy to get 2 streets so far. And the river is the jack of diamonds. Somehow I improved on every street. Go runner, runner, full house. And now we're still going to bet small for the size of the pot, but I choose a size of $60. I think if my opponent has the last jack, he's certainly calling. If he has 4-5 or spades, he's not calling anything. Maybe a weak pocket pair thinks that this is a decent run out to call a $60 bet. That is the value bet I choose, but not the case. My opponent folds pretty quickly. Guess he didn't have much on this one. On the next fun hand of poker, I looked at a king-queen offsuit from the hijack. When an under-the-gun player makes it $20 and there's no straddle, it's just a really big raise versus 8 players. He's saying he has a premium. You could probably just fold here versus an under-the-gun 6.5x. But folding is boring, so we're going to play king-queen offsuit from the +1 position. The big blind decides to call as well, so we end up going 3 ways to a flop, which is king 8-3 rainbow. Pretty happy to see this. The under-the-gun player seems to like it as well because he bets $50. I'm not folding once I make top pair, second best kicker. I make the call. We end up going heads up to a turn card, which is the jack of clubs. Now my opponent bets $100, and he has like 200 total, so it's 100 more to call. And this is probably just a fold at this point. If my opponent ever had a weaker hand than me, it's king jack, and that now gets there. Players at 1-3 and below typically just give a lot of information on their hand strength by their bet size. They're not really consistent. So when he sizes up to 6.5x pre-flop and a pot size bet on the flop, he likely has ace king, pocket kings, pocket aces. But for $200, I just rip it all in, think that I'm ahead of queens, ace queen, ace 10 that just didn't know what to do once they bet pretty big. So I put it all in, and my opponent calls. River is the 4 of diamonds, and he does indeed have ace king.
It's not surprising. I mean, what's surprising is that it still feels so shitty.
So kind of a cooler, but I think this one's pretty easy to get away from if you think it through. On the next hand of note, we're going to do a double board PLO bomb pot. I don't put too many of these in the vlog, but I think this one's actually interesting enough to include. I look down at queen 8-8-5 with 2 clubs, and I'm in the +1 position. The top board comes king jack deuce rainbow, but the bottom board comes 8-8-3.
No way did that just happen.
Rainbow. So we flop quads on one and basically nothing on the other one. I'm hoping it checks all the way to me so I can just bet super small, like 15 or 20, and get like 5 callers. So I'm getting half the pot. I'm likely not getting the other board at all. But the small blind disappoints me by leading for 60. Now I just assume it's going to be heads up, and I'm going to get half the pot, and we're going to chop just the pot with no additional money going in since he sized up so much. Unless he has exactly pocket 3s, where I'm coolering him on the one and 8s are beating pocket 3s on the other. So I just call the 60, but luckily for me, the cutoff calls as well. So we're going 3 ways. We got a little extra money in there. Both turns are a 7. Top is 7 of spades, bottom is 7 of diamonds. And unfortunately for me, the small blind leads out again for $150. He's betting big both times. Like, I don't see how this can go 3 ways again, but I'm just going to call the 150. Hopefully the cutoff has something he's willing to play with. Maybe he's got 2 pair on both boards or a strong set on one. But when I just called, the other player folds. So we are heads up to a river card, which on top is the 7 of hearts. On bottom is the deuce of clubs. And my opponent does not slow up on betting. He bets $200. We called twice to get a 3rd or 4th player in, try to get this as multi-way as possible. But now that we have one board absolutely locked up and absolutely nothing on the other one, we have to go for the jam here. Hopefully we can get him to fold like, I don't know, king jack on one board, thinking it just got kind of counterfeited with running 7s to over pairs and trips. So kind of a good run out for me on the top one. I pot it immediately, and my opponent goes pretty deep into the tank, thinks for over 45 seconds, and then eventually gets the fold. So we get the full pot, we steal away half of it. I feel fantastic about this hand. This one is quite good for me. Following that, I look down at king queen offsuit again, this time from the small blind. With a button straddle, I raise up to $15. The +1 and the button decide to call, so we're 3 ways to a flop, which is queen jack 3 rainbow. Out of position to basically everyone, I'm going to check and see what these opponents want to do, and on the flop it checks through. The turn is the 4 of spades, pretty safe. I bet $15, just trying to get value from random jacks, pocket pairs, straight draws, backdoor spades, all kinds of stuff. But then the player in the +1 raises to $50.
Isn't this a great surprise?
Like Pearl Harbor.
Hate to see it, but hopefully he has one of these backdoor combo draws, 5-6 of spades, 9-10 of spades, ace-5 or ace-deuce of spades that picked up the world. Well, I pot control on the flop to not fold to this turn raise. I make the call, and we're heads up to a river card, which is the 8 of clubs. And now my opponent bets $135. Very big bet on the river, and at this point in my mind, I'm just hoping he has like king 10, random spades. I think queen 10, queen 9 take this line at some frequency, so I end up making the call, but this is probably just wishful thinking. My opponent had pocket 4, so he turned a set, and a raise on the turn, nearly over bet on the river, should probably just be a fold from all one pair holdings. Probably need a little bit better than this to call, so kind of a blunder on my part. But hopefully I can turn it around, because with 3 limps, I'm in the big blind with ace-king offsuit. I make it $25, definitely want to size up. Want to get this closer to heads up, as my hand has not played too well odd position versus 3 other opponents. But that's exactly what happens. Everyone calls, and we're 4 ways to a flop, which is king, king, deuce, 2 diamonds. Well, this feels pretty good. Top trips with the best kicker. Hopefully someone has another king and we could just get stacks in. But out of position to 3 people, I'm going to check, see what they want to do. I think it's fine to just bet small here, because diamond draws on other kings and all pocket pairs are probably calling a small bet. But I check. The low jack makes it 50 and the cutoff calls. And into 2 people showing interest, I'm not sure raising is the best option. I'd like to get as much money in on the turn as possible, so I just make the call. Turn is the 8 of spades. Love to see it. King 8 is pretty unlikely, so if my opponent has a king, we're probably getting stacks in on this street. I check, hoping either of these opponents have a random king and they're just going to put it in. But it checks through, so that's kind of bad. Looks like they're closer to diamond draws, which I'm not too happy about that they get to draw for free. But the river is the queen of clubs. Also kind of a dicey card. My opponent could have king queen, but I'd say unlikely, as they did not bet the turn. I think king queen just puts more money in, so I most likely have the best hand. Don't want to check through on the river, so I decided to bet very small, $85 into a pretty big pot. Think that at least at some frequency, if my opponent had like 10-9 of diamonds, they might turn their hand into a bluff. Thinking this size from me is kind of blockerish. And also maybe my opponent has like queen X of diamonds, where they got some showdown value and they're going to just call and see what happens. But on this one, both players fold, so we get no additional value, but we still win a decent sized pot with 3 of a kind. And that leads us to the next fun hand of poker. I look down at pocket kings under the gun. I raise it up to $15. The +1 and the small blind decide to call, as well as the button. So we end up going 4 ways to a flop, which is jack 7 deuce rainbow. Well, I'm just going to bet small here. I check out a position a lot of the time, but we're too multi-way, and we want a random jack to just put some money in. So I bet $35, and the player to my left raises to 105. It folds all the way to me.
Yes, this is great.
He's got like 300 total. He made it $100. Is he going to put a third of his stack in and not all of it if he has a jack? I don't think so. I'm all in. Bet 3-bet. My opponent snap calls. We agree to run it twice. On the first board, we get the 3 of spades and ace of diamonds. Second board, 7 of clubs, 9 of diamonds. And I show my hand. It's been shown for a while. My opponent eventually just flicks over a jack and throws the other card into the muck. So we end up getting $300 with pocket kings versus a pair of jacks. Seems like we are turning things around in the later hours. And somehow I always pick up premiums at the end of the session, because I'm in pocket aces on the button. With a button straddle, a small blind raised to $15. First player has put money in the middle. Love it. The +1 player raises to $50. You really don't see 3 bets at 1-3 and below.
And I've never been happier.
And it folds back to me. When my opponent 3 bets and basically under the gun open, I'm thinking they basically have kings or queens, and we're just getting the money in now. They are so premium. Maybe ace king suited very infrequently, but I'm going to put in a big raise because I think my opponent has too strong of a hand and they're just not going to fold. I make it 175 over 3x, trying to get all the money in on the flop, basically any flop. The +1 position thinks for a little bit and then eventually makes the call. We are heads up to a flop, which is Jack 4 deuce rainbow. Hopefully my opponent doesn't have pocket jacks, but maybe they do because they just lead all in for $150. I'm certainly not folding aces. Hopefully they have ace jack or queens or kings. They would be drawing to a very low amount of outs on that one. I asked my opponent if they want to run it once or twice, as I'm usually a 2 times kind of person. They are adamant about 1 time, and none of us have shown our hand yet. So usually when people are adamant about it, they usually just like have pocket jacks. In my experience, recreational players often always switch it up. They run it once when they have the best hand, run it twice when they're drawing, or it's closer to a 50-50. So I'm actually expecting to lose this one. Turn is the 6 of diamonds. River is the 7 of diamonds. But my opponent does have pocket queens. They were drawing to 2 outs, and queens still feel pretty good on a jack-high board. We end up scooping this big pot to end the day. Seems great to end on a very high note. We are into the game for $800, out of the game for $2160, which is a profit of $1,360 across 6 hours, equates to $226 an hour, or 45 big blinds an hour. I do think that the PLO double or bomb pot with quads, I think it was played to the best it can possibly be played. We end up getting pretty much the max there. We get a river bet in and we still get a fold to scoop the whole pot. That one's pretty nice. And then at the end, you know, kings hold up versus what was top pair and then aces into queens. When you get some premiums and they hold up and they run into other hands that are pretty strong, you're going to have a very profitable day, and that's what I did today. So pretty happy about that. Thank you for watching. I appreciate you making it to this point, and I will see you on the next one.